Oh, from New York, you are listening to Extra Time from the AT&T 5G Virtual Studios. I am Andrew Wiebe with my partners in soccer, David Goss, Matt Doyle. Big show today. How many times will we tell producing Anders to STFU as we blow through his time cues many times? USMNT roster's out. The Canadian roster is not big absences for Canada, but bangers only for Greg Berhalter. We will talk about the Octagonal and what is to come over the next week in frigid conditions. The Union have traded Kasper Schmeichel, and reportedly they're going to get a Golden Boot winner out of Denmark. The rumor mill is linking the Galaxy and Douglas Costa, and Ezekiel Barco's immediate future appears to be decided with Taty perhaps following him. Orlando City, they're close to filling some DP spots. I got one filled. Facundo Torres will tell you more in the first of our three previews on today's show. Also talking FC Dallas and Houston Dynamo with their new head coaches, Nico Estevez and Paulo Nagamura. They're going to join us. We're going to give you the best left backs and right backs in MLS, and in the mailbag, Diego Valeri's legacy, Pablo Ducata, North Texas, and much more. Welcome back, Doyle. How you doing? Cat on your lap? Nothing changes in this world.
No, it is just a little bit of a pause in between shows. No, it's good. I'm glad to be back. I had a nice, refreshing vacation, saw some family, and ready to come back and talk some MLS.
When you travel, do you physically bring an armchair with you? In tow? Like, is that
only
checked
spiritually?
Oh,
I was going to say.
Spiritually, not physically.
It's just an NFT of an armchair that you bring with you?
Yes, exactly. It's a screenshot of an armchair.
It's just a feeling that you own this thing, but you might not. Right. There might be another armchair analyst out there that's just saying, this is not unique to you. This is all of us. How have you experienced the offseason, though? We had you for a second, and then every time I put together a rundown for the show or go through the coming up, I'm like, oh my God, this is by far the craziest offseason in MLS I've ever been a part of. I don't think it's even close.
Yeah, same for me as well. And it's something that we've talked about on this show, amongst ourselves, online, like wherever, for the past 10 years, more than 10 years with you and me, but in like basically since day one, hoping that MLS would get to the point where it's a significant player in the global transfer market. And we obviously the games are number one, but we know that with this sport of ours, the silly season, the transfer windows drive so much interest for good reason, right? Everybody wants to see the moves that can happen to make your team better. There's a huge, I think, there's an understanding now in the fan base that great young players are going to get sold on, whether it's someone who's already happened, like a Daryl Dike or a Ricardo Pepi, or somebody that might happen, like a Kevin Paredes. This is where MLS is now, and we've been waiting a long time. And now that it's finally here, I'm really loving it, but it's also completely overwhelming to try to keep track of everything that's going on, especially with the imports. Because I haven't seen a ton of Facundo Torres. I know the name of the Danish striker that the Union are bringing, but I don't watch his games.
And he won't say it. It just, Doyle's not getting caught. So
I know.
I'm
waiting for Anders. I can spell his name. I'm waiting for Anders' mom to tell us how to say his name.
Here's the beautiful thing. Anders' mom did hit us up. We asked her for the pronunciation. Really? She went through the grapevine. We listened to it on recording here, and I'm going to do my best. From Brøndby, Mikel Ura. Yeah?
Ura. Okay. I can remember that.
So is Anders' father on recording to his mother? This is where we get our information.
You didn't hear her say, no, say the full name again.
Say it again. These idiots are going to need it at least 3 or 4 times to really drive it home. Yeah, it is crazy. And the other thing is there's a lot of sticker shock to it, too. When you've sort of been used to numbers of a different level, and then you said Kevin Paredes, and report out there that Wolfsburg is after him. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But they're like, Taylor Twellman's tweeting, okay, well, DC says his valuation is $8 or $9 million. And back in the day, it was like, 8 or 9 million. Are you, what world are we even in? And now that's just sort of like, yeah, but you're going to probably need to make it 12. And we're going to need 20%. And maybe Leeds is going to come in for him 2 years down the road for 25.
Right.
The scale of it is completely different.
And obviously, as you said, there's different scales to it. But we've talked about Gabby Slolina on this show. Now the rumor's out that Club Brugge wants to sign Brady Scott.
Yeah, I was like, who even is this? Not even Brady Scott. Who is it?
Somebody.
Brady Scott's now on Columbus.
That was the thing. Carlisle reports it's Jeff Carlisle, and I'm like,
Chris Brady.
Of all the
Chris
people in the
Brady's
world,
his name.
I should know who this person is, and I don't know who they are.
I should know who he is, and I don't know who it is. But Club Brugge knows who it is.
Yeah. Incredible. Anyway, there's a lot to get to. Let's get to it. Coming up here on the show, just so you know, the Octagonal is coming fast, like Thursday. We will have Extra Time Club and Country after every night of match days. So those are our next 3 shows, just to sort of fill you in on what's happening here. We won't have a Monday show next week, because Thursday will come to you after Honduras, Canada, of course, USA, El Salvador. Before that, on Sunday, we'll come to you after Canada, United States, the big one in Hamilton. So, we'll be right with you at Final Whistle. So come join us, all the reaction. And then Wednesday after El Salvador, Canada, of course, USA. Or, excuse me, I got this all confused. Oh, USA, Honduras, and then it's El Salvador, Canada. But we'll be with you after the Final Whistle, whether it's the U.S. or Canada, finishing off the night. And then on Thursday after that, we'll be back to our season previews with Gonzalo Pineda in Atlanta and SKC in Portland. Let's get into MLS preseason rapid fire, I guess we're calling it. The Union signed Mikel Ura from Brøndby. This is Tannenwald official, but not officially official.
So it's beyond official.
It's like it's chiseled in some
stone,
sort of
Rosetta Stone.
Yeah, diamonds and diamonds. This is sort of what we've asked for from the Union. They sent Kasper Schmeichel to the Fire for 7 figures, low 7 figures in allocation. Seemed like he wanted to go. He wanted the guaranteed contract, and it seems like the Union had a target in mind. Doyle, help me understand how you perceive this profile. We yell about, hey, go spend all that money that you've received in transfers. Go get a top-tier number 9. Well, he's a Golden Boot winner in the Danish League. Might not be quite at the level that would be like, oh my God, but it's quietly very solid seeming, which seems like the Union.
Yeah, but so the Danish League is the best of the Scandinavian leagues. Brøndby is always one of the better teams there. Like I said, I do not watch a lot of the Danish League. I can't give you the complete rundown of what this guy is, but from the people that I've spoken with, he's a late bloomer. He didn't start being this guy until he was in his mid-20s. So even some of the really plugged in people are like, yeah, I don't actually know a lot about him. But one thing to bear in mind here is that Ernst Tanner has barely missed. Ernst Tanner has done, I think, better than any other GM in terms of making the right overseas signings over the past 3 years. And if they think that it makes sense to, trade Kasper Schmeichel for what is about 1.2 million in 1.2 million ish in allocation cash, and bring in a new DP striker who has hit his prime right when you would expect to, and should have 4 or 5 more years of that prime left, and that this is the upgrade that can bump the Union from a team that makes the semifinals to finish their chances and makes the finals, be it in the playoffs or continentally. I think Ernst Tanner has sort of earned the benefit of the doubt here.
Yeah, it's exciting. I think if you're a Philly fan, you're talking about a guy last year who scored 21 goals and had 6 assists. As Doyle said, it's the Danish League is highly regarded. We haven't seen a ton of moves straight between the two, but I think Hani Mukhtar, that's where he came from, right?
Yeah, he came from Brøndby
right now. Yeah,
yeah, he came from Brøndby.
So you're looking at a player who, it took maybe a year to settle in, and then was an MVP finalist. And so you're talking about a guy who already this year has 14 goals and 2 assists halfway through the season for Brøndby. Played in Champions League qualifying last year, scored in the Europa League for this team. And then I think you look at, he's 6'2", so has a similar physical profile to Kasper Schmeichel, which clearly is a part of what Philly's looking for. And you've brought in Julian Carranza as well. And so this feels like the type of move where you're not losing things that Schmeichel brought you, and the potential for the upgrade is that he could be a legitimate goal scorer, which is something they just have never had, and we've talked about continuously being that next step. And Philly promised they'd make moves, right? Ernst Tanner said, we're going to bring in a big money center forward. We're going to add attacking reinforcements. And now you've got 2 DPs in the offseason, which is as strong as you can go.
Young DP, Julian Carranza, of course, that we're talking about here. Does this signify a 2-striker setup? It seems to me like Ura is more of a he's more of a traditional 9 than Shibilko sometimes wanted to be, if that makes sense. More of a like in the box type of guy, as opposed Shibilko liked to get out into he liked to drop in, he liked to get out into the channels. He didn't exactly think of himself as a guy who's just going to occupy center backs all the time. So now you have like Ura and Burke, and that seems to be sort of your big guys, and then it's Carranza and Santos on sort of the little guy runner side of this. Does that jive with how you guys are seeing the depth chart?
I think so, but bear in mind that there's going to be a level of flexibility, right? Like we know, given Tanner's background with Red Bull, and Ralph Ragnick is the sort of the overarching tactical and strategic guru of how these teams play, that the ideal formation is some sort of 4-2-2-2, and mostly, though, for the past couple of years, for the Union, that's been a 4-4-2 diamond. Slightly different. That said, when they had to change to a 4-3-2-1 last year and play that Christmas tree formation down the stretch, first of all, they did, and second of all, it worked really well. So while I think the intent might be to have the sort of big guy and the little guy both pressing in some version of a 4-4-2, I don't think that's going to be written in stone. And in fact, I think that there's going to be maybe a little bit of a pressure to go back to playing the 4-3-2-1, because that's how you get both Daniel Gazdag and Paxton Harrison on the field at the same time. And beyond anything else, we know the Union's first priority is to develop young guys like Aronson, get Leon Flock another 2,500 minutes, get Jack McGlynn out there and Quinn Sullivan as often as they can. And honestly, playing 5 midfielders seems to be a clearer path to that than playing any version of a 4-4-2.
Dave, let me flip this for you here. We got Kasper Shibilko to the Fire. He seems very happy. I want to shout out the Fire social team for the Polish deli clip, when just the words of an angel yelling out that the sausage is ready. Shaqiri to the Fire. Rate that for me on a scale of 1 to 10 on on rumors. How does it feel? Is it like hot fire 10, or is it just like 1?
If 10 is running full field to celebrate a goal, then it's a rip his jersey off and celebrate in the corner, which is past that. I love Shaqiri. I think he's so much fun to watch. He's like a bowling ball of a soccer player. He's obviously done incredible things for the Swiss national team. He has been inconsistent at his clubs over the course of his time, which is part of why he's sort of filtered in and out of lineups. It's similar in my mind to what Giovinco was. And so I think he could be a difference maker in this league. You wish that someone had signed him a couple of years ago when he was a little bit younger, but it seems like he's on his way out. And obviously the connection is he came through FC Basel's academy and was sold on from there. And George Heitz, who is now running things in Chicago, was the one who was putting together that entire Basel team. And they were extremely successful, winning in Champions League, beating big team in the EPL. Mohamed Salah came through that team as well. And so Shaqiri's now gone throughout his career, played at Bayern, played at Liverpool, and now it seems like he's not a factor at Lyon. And does his signing alone mean that Chicago is a playoff team? No. But I think that you bring a player like this in, it sort of gives them time to find their feet, because Chicago's not going to be successful tomorrow. What has to happen under Ezra Hendrickson has to take a couple of years, but I think Shaqiri gives you talent to compete game in and game out.
All right, let's keep it rolling here, because we're going to pack it in this show. Cesar Luis Merlo is basically the South American equivalent of Tom Bogert or of Fabrizio Romano, if you want to know what's happening in South America as it pertains to any player, but in particular players either coming or going to MLS. He is your guy. We're just going to run him down here. We'll talk more about Facundo Torres in the Orlando preview, but he comes on a familiar path with some successful guys, Diego Rossi, Brown Rodriguez, etc. But River Plate seemed to be busy here. Ezequiel Barco, the reporting from Merlo, from Felipe Cardenas in Atlanta, and others, is that River Plate want him, they're going to get him, and that they also want Taty Castellanos. As far as Barco goes, Atlanta just got to move him, right? And, River Plate's still a huge club, and they seem to be shopping mostly in MLS right now, as our Boca Juniors, who are apparently going to get Nico Figal. But what if they get Barco and Taty, Doyle? Like that's like two sides of a coin, right? One side is that Barco is this asset that is sort of hasn't gone as planned, let's say. I don't want to say it's been devalued, but it's been devalued. And then Taty is an appreciating asset who a lot of people said, okay, he's going to Europe, or maybe Palmeiras will get him, and they're Copa Lib champions, I should say. And there was reportedly a $12.5 million bid that NYCFC said, nah, not enough. Like, I think it's more interesting. The Taty side of this is way more interesting than the Barco side. The Barco side makes sense.
Yeah, the Barco side makes sense in that he, like you said, he's been a depreciating asset in MLS. He's never lived up to his hype or his price tag. Atlanta have to get off that contract if they want to improve. They have to open up that DP slot because Barco's just not going to be the guy. At the same time, Marcelo Gallardo is one of the best coaches in the world, I think. And if he sees talent there and has an idea of how to get more out of it, and River Plate can get him. They're not breaking the bank to get him. It makes perfect sense from the players' perspective. I think it makes sense from Atlanta's perspective to just avoid the sunk cost fallacy and do what you have to move on. With Taty, I'm still going to be a little bit surprised if he ends up at River Plate. And no, they are the one Argentinian team right now that has real spending power. And especially if they sell Alvarez to Man City, which is what this whole thing seems to be contingent upon. But it does look like Fiorentina are about to sell Dusan Vlahovic, and if they do that, then Taty is reportedly high on their list of targets, and he's better than Ricardo Pepi and Daryl Dike, and we saw what those guys went for going to the Bundesliga and the championship, and there's no reason to think that Taty Castellanos can't end up playing for a club like Fiorentina or a mid-table or higher team in any of the big five leagues in Europe. So, I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up at River Plate because they're River Plate and they're going to have the money, it looks like. He's spoken openly about how he wants his next stop to be Europe. And there is European interest in him, and it's not too hard to do that math.
This seems like a classic deadline day situation where there's a lot of moving parts, there's a lot of different dominoes, there might be a lot of clubs in, or there might not, depending on what other business happens, and that includes the Julian Alvarez, the Man City stuff, and of course you said the transfers of Fiorentina and others might have to make. This one seems like we're going to be waiting and probably hearing more and more rumors over the course of time. Joe Rojas reports that he'll go to DC as a Paul Arriola replacement. That trade is not yet done. It's not official, though a lot of people have reported that the framework of the deal is there. Rojas is former Cruz Azul winger, now at Emelec. He's an Ecuadorian international over time. We'll see if that happens. As I said, Nico Figal sold to Boca Juniors for a couple mil by Inter Miami. Hey, good to get that money for a guy that you don't want, is not going to play for you. Interesting what's going on in Charlotte. Christian Titi Ortiz is signed. They keep saying, Dave, over and over and over, as a number 10. He is very familiar with Miguel Angel Ramirez from Independiente de Valle, where he played as a winger and attacking midfielder, and even as a false 9. What do you make of this right now? And then, of course, you have the requisite rumors that Angel and Oscar Romero are headed to Charlotte, which, I mean, if you're an expansion team and you haven't been linked with the Romeros, you might not be an expansion team.
With TT, it seems like, one, he's on loan, and two, he's not a designated player signing. So it seems like they got quality in the door without having to spend those spots, which they still have open, to use TT. His best years of his career were under Miguel Angel Ramirez, as you mentioned, with Independiente de Valle. So you're bringing a guy who's now bounced around since that success and hasn't really found his feet at Xolos. You're bringing that guy in, and I think he's appreciative of the chance to work with the manager again. And every time I've seen him play, it has been as a winger who likes to come inside and score goals and get direct to goal, but always has been coming in off that wing. And as you said, everything about him in their messaging on the release was about an attacking midfielder. Now, I think it makes sense in a team where you're still probably going to bring in some big pieces in the attack that you have a guy who's flexible, who can play those 3 roles so that you are not hamstrung and having to bring in a true winger only as the next piece if something else falls. But it seems like a good start in that at least you have someone who can pull the strings, who has that quality, who's experienced, who has an understanding of what the coach's expectations are. And Charlotte has built from the back front, which I don't think is wrong as an expansion team. Clearly, Nashville proved that. there are still a lot of holes in the depth chart along that front four. And I don't know, it's January 24th. At some point, they have to play.
Yeah, DPs continue to be the story.
The other thing that was odd about
Who are going to be their DPs.
Yeah, and the other thing that was odd about it was they specifically mentioned Riley McCree in the release and saying when he left, we wanted someone else in who is more of a true central midfielder. So it seems to be a late move, but again, as you said, it's a lot of moving pieces for them going on, and everyone around the world has moving pieces right now.
I want to say their president tweeted this morning that they're hopeful to get another couple of these over the line this week, really sort of like pulling back the curtain a little bit. We'll see if what's behind the curtain matches what they think is going to happen. But again, I'm reserving all judgment on them. I think they've done some good work until you see the top-end attacking talent they bring in. We shall see. There's not a ton of rumors with them, other than, of course, the very enterprising agency that represents Angel and Oscar Romero, who just makes sure to get that in at this time of year. Maybe that's true. I don't know. They need 2 DPs. There's 2 of them. Like, I can't imagine they would do that, but we shall see. Douglas Costa does not seem like he's going to be a DP to the LA Galaxy. He went on loan from Juve to Gremio, and Gremio got relegated, and he was like, yeah, no, it seems. And now he's going to go to LA. As a DP, yeah, no. But as a TAM player, Doyle, yeah, maybe, why not? Like, I have no skin in the game. Like, well, I'll light up a candle right now over at the Shrine, and we'll get this thing going.
Yeah, I mean, it's a worthwhile flyer on a guy who, he's out of his prime now, right? He's 31, 32 years old. But if you don't have to spend a DP slot on him, he still has a lot of ability. But it's Douglas Costa. We've all seen him play. You know that for 5 minutes out of the game, he can be the best player on the field, no matter who else is out there. For the other 85 minutes, there's like a decent chance he will be the worst player on the field by a mile.
It's so worth it for
I
those
don't expect
5 minutes, though. Just that little taste. Just give me a little taste.
You know what he would be perfect for if he would buy into it is the Ilsinho role. Like, if Greg Vanney could convince him, like, look, dude, we just need you 25 minutes fit, and you will play every game. You will finish every game, just be 25 minutes fit, and be an absolute terror out there. I think that would be ideal for the Galaxy, and given how Douglas Costa has sort of approached his career, might be a good fit for him too.
What if, like this is the number 10 depth chart right now, if they sign Costa, it would be Douglas Costa, Victor Vasquez, and Sasha Kljestan. So all those guys are fighting for the Ilsinho role. They're like, no, I'm coming off the bench. Like, I got to save these legs, man. I'm the one that's coming off the bench. Give me that opportunity.
Just do it like a line change in hockey.
We'll see what happens.
No, they
here,
sub each for each other.
Galaxy.
Vasquez comes in the 60th. Sasha comes in for him in the 70th. And then Costa comes in for Sasha in the 80th.
It's a rotation. We'll see what happens. It'd be really fun, and I'm pro fun.
I think he would be. For the record, though, I'm pretty sure Douglas Costa would be playing as a winger under Vanney.
I don't
think he's Vanney's type of head.
I'm just trying to shoehorn him into that old school group of 10s.
Also, the reports out of Galaxy training are that Kevin Cabral has hit the gym. So he went from noodle arms to al dente, is what I've been told.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who told you that? And how many children do they have?
Secret.
Because that's the dad. That's the
some
most
dad stuff right there.
Wonderful stuff. I really appreciate and love that.
You could tell that the Gasman's finally engaged. Might be a kid on the way with that.
Whoa. He's just trying to appease me.
Yeah.
He's just dropping Jad jokes. Speaking of appeasing me, Douglas Costa has a Shakhtar Donetsk connection, and Marlos, who might go to Houston, which we'll talk about in a little bit, also has a Shakhtar Donetsk connection, and that is a sister club for Extra Time. So San Jose Earthquakes are going to sign Francisco Calvo, say reports. I say again, the San Jose Earthquakes are going to sign Francisco Calvo, per reports.
It is. I mean, that is a match made in heaven. So not super surprising.
Imagine? Can you imagine Francisco Calvo?
What a beautiful world.
Marking?
Yeah.
Oh, what a wonderful world this could be. Just perfect. Just perfection in every way.
Big season for Tanner Beeson. Big season.
Austin FC reportedly signing a center back out of Norway, I believe, and the Crew after an Australian center back from Red Star Belgrade. You can go look those up. Justin Shea, that's official to Hoffenheim, 18-month loan. Shaq Moore, here's an interesting one as we move our way into the octagonal. Shaq Moore, not in the roster, of course, for Greg Berhalter, but reportedly wanted by Nashville SC and Montreal. Nashville SC, I mean, look, they've said outright, we want to upgrade the right back spot. That would be an upgrade. That'd be a nice move.
I mean, would he? I think that Shaq Moore is a better crosser than Alistair Johnston. I'm not sure.
But Alistair
got
Johnston's not on
traded,
the
my
team
guy.
anymore.
Yeah, so I'm saying to upgrade from Alistair Johnston.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go from Alistair Johnston 1 year to Shaq Moore the next. It's like Shaq Moore is a better crosser of the ball. He's a fantastic crosser of the ball. I'm not sure he's as good an all-around player as Alistair Johnston is. And obviously he's not competing, but when you go, like, they didn't sell Alistair Johnston just because. They sold him because they had ideas of what they want to do with it. And if the idea is Shaq Moore, then that's a big tell of what they want from that right wing back spot.
You don't think they sold Alistair Johnston because Montreal came and said, here's $1 million in allocation and sell-on fee for a super draft pick? Like, I don't know that they could say no to that deal.
He's a starting center back. He's a starting defender in MLS. Like, he's a domestic. He's 23 years old. How many times do we have to see these types of players sold for, even $1 million of allocation cash until we realize that the team getting the cash is usually the team that loses these deals?
Flip side is
right?
Jack Mayer fills that exact same
right.
That, like,
well, I mean, he fills,
all those buckets.
He fills part of it.
We'll see what else he can fill. We don't know. With Alistair Johnson, we did know. We don't know about Jack Mayer. Ahmed Longmire, look, that's a draft pick, but so was Alistair Johnson.
Right. If they need,
I'm not knocking Nashville here. Like, I completely understand it. And when I said Jack Mayer fills part of it, remember Alistair Johnson played like 3 different roles for Nashville. So Mayer fills the part where, like, right center back in a back 3. That's the part he fills. They still have to figure out how to fill the other part. Right now, it's Alex Mouil. I mean, Shaq Moore would potentially be the other part of that answer.
Daniel Henry in camp with Real Salt Lake. I like that one. Like to see him picked up there. DeAndre Yedlin to Inter Miami with the Chris Henderson connection there. Again, what do you trust out here? But some people are saying, reports are saying, and it's been amplified into my Twitter stream that DeAndre Yedlin has been bought out of his contract by Galatasaray. There's a lot of things that have been rumored to happen to DeAndre Yedlin in Turkey, and none of them have appeared to be true so far. Yedlin to Inter Miami. How do you feel about that?
I think it would make sense for Inter Miami if they can afford it and it can fit on their roster, which is all things that I'm unaware of. By the way, DeAndre Yedlin played yesterday for Galatasaray.
No, that's correct. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I don't.
Just making sure.
I don't know. There's nothing that I trust. I don't trust anything until I see DeAndre Yedlin like in Miami, and not just in Miami, because he could be in Miami on his own personal time. In Miami with like an Inter Miami branded shirt on at the training facility.
It sounds like they sold Nico Figal, and the Swedish American they brought in could play a center back as well or right back. And so if they slide him to center back, there's an opening at right back. They obviously lost Lewis Morgan, so you've lost verticality on that wing. You've lost some of your attacking impetus. I think when you hear DeAndre Yedlin coming back to MLS and you think, where would he fit? What teams does it make sense? I think this is one of the better fits for a team that's probably going to have to play against the ball and will struggle a little bit over the next year or two. But I think Yedlin can be a leader, a face of the team, as well as potentially a game changer at times as much as a right back can be.
Yeah, just it's painful. You didn't want to see it, but I'd hoped at least that DeAndre Yedlin would at least overlap with Ryan Shawcross for a little bit. But it's not going to happen for Inter Miami fans, so they'll have to deal with that disappointment. Octagonal coming up on Thursday, as I said. We'll be covering everything Extra Time Club and Country at the final whistle. Come hang out with us. Those will go up a podcast as well. So if you don't have time in the moment, or you're off to do something else, or whatever it may be, you can listen to those on demand. As always, did you guys see the Greg Banger?
Yeah,
that's some really good cherry picked content right there. That's good. That was a great hit, though. I love that Sean John didn't even move. Left-footed from Greg. Super casual about it. Just turns, get back in line. That's wonderful. That was a great moment for him. And then, of course, the craziness that is USMNT Twitter went and tore a bunch of stuff apart in the roster. Before we get to the U.S. roster, Canada's not out yet. We do know, though, that Alphonso Davies and Steven Eustachio will not play. COVID, we're in a pandemic. You know how this goes. That's big. That's really big. And it's honestly, for me, Dave, disappointing. I want to see the U.S. qualify. I would love to see the U.S. win in Hamilton. I want that. I still have my background is the Renaissance painting that is Christian Pulisic shushing. Like, I want more of those moments, in particular between the U.S. and Canada. And it may still come in this game. But, man, I wanted to see Alphonso Davies and Steven Eustachio. Those are two of the top 5 players, maybe even in the region.
Well, Davies the best player in the region, and Eustachio's probably the best passer in the region. And obviously they've been a huge part of what Canada's done over the last 2 years. Eustachio in the Gold Cup was the talisman for this team, and he was able to play at a high level. You've never been able to say this before. One, that the best player in the region was Canadian, or maybe you could during D-Rose time. But two, they have the cover for it. Like, they have the players that can fill in. They have Mark-Anthony Kaye. They have Jonathan Osorio. They have Atiba Hutchinson. They have Sam Piet as midfield options if that's how they choose to go. And then with Alphonso Davies, they had already moved him from left wing back because Sam Adekugbe's played so well, and Richie Larea spent time there as well. Now Richie going to England. And so they filled in there, and now it's probably across the front 3. But they have Liam Miller, who's scoring goals. Now that he's finally left Liverpool. Tejan Buchanan just got his first assist against Standard Liège this weekend in Belgium. Jonathan David's back from COVID, and he started the last 2 straight games for Lille and scored a goal. Obviously, Kyle Larin has done incredible things. But so you have a list of names. What's tough is over the course of 3 games and moving pieces, you're missing a ton of depth there. But I think this is a roster that's good enough to get over that. So I agree with you. Alphonso Davies in Nashville, I think, was the star of the show in the first USA-Canada game. You'd expect he would have been this time as well, and it's unfortunate, and we hope for the best for him, by the way, medically. But this is a Canada team that should still expect the same amount of points over the course of this window.
So right now in the Octagonal, you have Canada number 1. Just to remind you, Canada is top with 2 more match days left, with 6 more games remaining. 16 points from 8 games. U.S. has 15 from 8. Mexico has 14 from 8. They're above Panama in tiebreakers. Panama has 14 from 8. Of course, the top 3 go to the World Cup. The 4th goes into that intercontinental playoff. So in this match day coming up, for Canada, it's going to Honduras. It's hosting the United States. And then it's going to El Salvador. So you have 2 away games. The United States is going to go in Columbus at Lower.com Field, U.S. El Salvador, then going to Hamilton to Tim Hortons Field, just aptly named there. And then they're going to host Honduras in St. Paul. They're going to be real cold. Doyle, there's been a lot made of the temperatures. Like, should we tackle that sort of elephant in the room right now, the conditions?
I mean, my take, like my approach to it is that both Canada and the U.S. have a ton of talent, and these types of conditions help neither team. It's good teams should they should be playing on a pristine field somewhere. That said, 2 months ago, Canada played in Edmonton against Mexico, and they played really good soccer. They played really good soccer in spite of the conditions. So even though St. Paul is not where I would, choose for the U.S. to play this game, Hamilton is maybe as warm as it could get for Canada, though it's not the nicest. It's not the nicest surface in the world. Like, for both these teams, conditions across all 3 games. You just have to deal with them, and it can be done. You can play good soccer in spite of it being 20 degrees out with wind and probably a little bit of snow.
Yeah, it's not ideal. It's not what you would probably hope for. The travel's a little bit better, apparently, but I don't think it introduces any excuses into the mix. You're trying to get to a World Cup right now. Just go get it done. If you lose those games, no matter where you are, you're gonna be in trouble. But
exactly. And there's a little bit of breaking news out of Panama right here. Yashin Quesada, who's one of the more prominent journalists down there covering the Panamanian national team, said there's a large or several players of the Panama team have tested positive for COVID. So they're going to miss at least 1 game, probably all 3. The exact players and how many not known
TBD. They go to Costa Rica, then they go to Mexico. Yep. Panama do, then they host Honduras. So they got a tough start.
And they have been really like a much better team than I thought they would. I mean, they're tied on Mexico, tied on 14 points with Mexico. That said, this is a very tough window for them, and it looks like it just got a lot tougher.
This is basically the crux of the Octagonal right now. You have the top 3 teams, and you have Panama sort of being a pest, saying, hey, we're going to threaten to get into that top 3 and push you out of automatic qualification. This will be a big window to help decide that. This could be a window where those top 3 teams, and maybe even Panama, depending on how Costa Rica do, say, hey, we're at least into a playoff. We know that going into the final match day, or 3 match days, I should say. We know that we're going to have a lifeline here no matter what. So TBD. Roster quick hits, and then we'll get to a couple big questions, and of course we'll break down the games after they happen. What did you see about this roster, guys, that stood out? Did you join in the oh my god, lots of MLS players narrative, or can we just address that it's he spent a couple weeks with these guys getting them ready? He's intimate with how they are prepared and how they are physically. And oh, by the way, as we see this Panama news, it's pretty useful to have a controlled environment ahead of these games as opposed to having guys coming in from all over the world and not knowing what's going to happen. There are 28 players called up by Greg Berhalter into this camp. I think that's pretty obviously pandemic forced in a way. You might not have seen that if we weren't in a pandemic, but we are, and so you have to plan for it. And when you can test guys for 2-3 weeks in advance and have them isolated in your place, well, look, that makes sense. Oh, and by the way, he trusts these players, and they've done a pretty good job so far. So that's my spiel. What do you like on the roster? What might you not like?
I think I agree with you, and I think even then, just look at specific names. I don't know that there's a ton of players that we're hearing. Busio obviously was unavailable to be called in, and then it's really you're talking about Joe Scally and John Anthony Brooks. I think are the two, and if they're not playing, if the assumption is that neither of them are high enough in the depth chart to play right now, and the John Anthony Brooks conversation is its own thing, which I think we can have, which is he has not performed for the U.S. I think he needs some specific parameters around him to be successful. I do actually think the players exist in the pool now that Miles Robinson and Walker Zimmerman have sort of appeared at the level they can, which is to cover for the things he struggles with athletically and in space. If he's not a starter, then it seems like Greg Berhalter doesn't feel inclined to bring him in. And right now, you look at a center back depth chart where he has enough pieces going into this camp. And so John Anthony Brooks has said it himself. I haven't performed at that level. I do think he should get an opportunity to go back into this group, but you don't take that risk in World Cup qualifying. And so if he's not needed because you have other options and everyone else is available, then I think he's spending the next 2-3 months not with the USMNT.
So what? It's Mark McKenzie. That's probably the name on this roster that you.
I mean, we're talking about the fourth.
Yeah,
we're talking
correct.
about the fourth string center.
Yeah. Look, Miles Robinson, Walker Zimmerman, Chris Richards. Those guys are all ahead of him on the depth chart right now.
Yeah, I think so. And I didn't think it would turn out this way. I still think that Brooks's left foot is, it's tough to replicate in this group. And if you think back to the Nations League game against Honduras, like he ended up setting up the only goal in that game with a neat little chipped ball, to the. I forget who was making it might have been Shaq Moore who was overlapping on the far right, and then PFOC, of course, heads it home. Like that's a nice ball. I do think other center backs in the pool can hit it, but Brooks is the one I trust to hit it most. At the same time, I didn't think Brooks was good against Mexico in the Nations League final, and he was really pretty bad against Canada, and then especially against Honduras in the September window. Bad to the point of being yanked at halftime. And he's by some arguments, he is the most talented center back in the pool. But I think David's argument is correct. He hasn't shown that consistently at all with the U.S., especially in qualifiers. So fourth on the depth chart, I'm okay with him not being there. I do wonder if there are other things going on. If you think back to even when he was a young guy, he didn't like coming off the bench. He didn't like being depth. I think Kyle Beckerman mentioned it way back in 2014 at the World Cup that Brooks was kind of tough about not being in the starting lineup. So I think there's some stuff that kind of adds up and maybe points to it being an off-field issue as well. And again, I'm like our defense hasn't been the problem in qualifying, so I'm okay with this. The thing I'm not okay with is there only being one left back on this roster. Anthony Robinson has been mostly, I think, pretty good in qualifying, and like if he needs to play 270 minutes, I kind of trust him. But like, why isn't Sam Vines there? Why isn't like George Bello has not been good, so I get why George Bello is not there, but like we've seen time and again that Serginho Dest just does not do well at left back for the U.S. national team. I know that Berhalter mentioned that Kellen Acosta and Reggie Cannon can also play left back, but like, no, they can't. No, not really. You know, not from the start in a World Cup qualifier.
Serginho Dest
so
can.
the fact he can, but he hasn't played well when he's played left back for the U.S.
I think it's the same as him playing right back for the U.S. He brings a ton of skill set to the table. He lacks in other spots, and if you have him on the field, you have him on the field. It doesn't seem to matter if it's the left or the right side for him. So I think you do have two options at left back, which I think is enough for this 3-game window. I also would have liked to see Sam Vines get called in. Clearly, DeJuan Jones is not going to be an option because was in camp for a month and wasn't able to hold on, but it feels to me like Dest and Robinson are your two guys, and that's enough for 3 games.
I hope it is. We shall see. Any other names you like on here? Luca Del Torre got in. People love that. Jordan
I was
Morris.
happy with that.
Jordan Morris is back, so that's a fun one. It's great that Tim Weah is healthy enough to be there. It seems like it's always sort of a question mark with him in these teams. Yeah, Brendan Aronson's holding on. He's a Red Bull Salzburg player for now, but I don't know what'll happen if Leeds just put down a number you can't say no to. Might he have to leave? Yunus Musa, did everybody see his goal for Valencia? Pretty good. I mean, talent-wise, this is a good team. How about Pepe, though? How's it gone for him at Augsburg? I have not yet watched an Augsburg game, though I've wanted to. It just hasn't jived with the scheduling. I don't know if you know I have children. Hasn't seemed like it's gone. Yeah, right. Let her know. Let Megan know. Just make sure she knows in case. Okay. Somebody came to the door. I didn't hear the buzzer. Maybe a delivery man. Just let them know. Make sure that they know. It hasn't gone.
There's no bigger curse, by the way, than having your buzzer be the first buzzer when you look at a board in New York City with no doorman. Buzz everyone's packages in, and I never get anything delivered. Sorry, continue.
That's a fine aside. I think everybody they needed to know that. It hasn't gone badly at Augsburg. He's a teenager in the Bundesliga coming off the offseason.
It's 2 games.
He just hasn't scored a goal yet. Yeah.
From what it's not he just hasn't scored a goal yet. It's like all the stuff that we knew were kind of deficiencies for him in terms of heading the ball, in terms of hold-up play, in terms of his link play being a little bit slow at times. He's looked overwhelmed with all of that. From people I've spoken with, he's been overwhelmed in training with all of that as well. It's 0% surprising. I remember hearing the same thing about Alphonso Davies 3 years ago. So it's there are very few players who just instantly make the jump with no preseason. This is middle of the year. He's still a super talented kid. I don't know if he's going to be able to show it completely in this half season with Augsburg, but I don't have much doubt about his long-term capabilities. It's just, you're a small club. You spend $20 million on a guy. You probably want immediate results. They maybe should have found a way to get, spend $5 million of that on Edward Atuesta and try to fix that midfield a little bit, because it's kind of grim at times watching this team play.
Should he be a starter?
So the one thing I would say, yeah, I think so. One, because he's currently playing competitive games, right? Where you look at a depth chart where guys are in off season. But I think the other thing to me, and I agree with everything Doyle said, I haven't watched the Leverkusen, I think was this weekend when they got annihilated. I haven't watched that game. I watched the one before. And you see all those deficiencies. He also pops up in dangerous spots. There's a thing that Ricardo Pepi is naturally good at. It will cause him to score goals even in games where he plays poorly, and it still exists. And you're seeing it in the Bundesliga, and it's only 2 games. And I think you'll see it again with the men's national team. And I think he earned his starting spot. He earned it through the rest of the play with FC Dallas. No one has taken it from him. And so I would come into this camp in a home game and give him confidence and tell him, we know that you're capable of doing this. And if you set him up with Pulisic and Weah alongside him, and that midfield 3 that we expect to play, and Musa's ball ability and all those things, I think he'll get chances and score goals.
I'm going to get your 11 here in a second, Doyle. Just got to give Josh Sargent his moment. Just minutes after the roster comes out without his name
you think
on
he was
it. Like
playing
a back
with his
heel
phone?
scorpion goal. You know what? This is like a decision day situation where somebody's in the stands, right? And like they have like a hand signal to him. It's like, 2 fingers is you're not in, 1 finger is you're in. And he's like, I'm getting the 2 fingers out here. I got to get 2 goals. I mean, a pretty incredible turn of events for Josh Sargent. How about your starting lineup, Doyle? What do you got us at for El Salvador to start it off for the USMNT?
Is it what I would choose or what I'm expecting?
Your choice.
Because I would still choose Turner over Steffen, but I don't expect I don't expect Greg Berhalter feels the same way. So it'll be Steffen in goal. I think it'll be Robinson, Zimmerman, the other Robinson, and Dest across the back line. I think it'd be Adams behind Musa and McKennie. And then left to right, I expect it to be Pulisic, Pepe, and Weah. The only thing that I could see maybe being a little different, Weah hasn't played 90 minutes in a good long while, so I could see I could see Berhalter starting Aronson or Areola over Weah just to save Weah's legs and not ask him to go full tilt in this first game.
There's a lot of turnover potential here, Dave, into Canada. What do you think changes? How would you prepare for that game? I mean, for the U.S., it's like that's an away game. You got to win against Honduras and El Salvador at home. Like that's the starting point for this window is those 6 points. What about the other 3 up for grabs?
I would assume, and I agree with Doyle's lineup fully, so I would assume Brendan Aronson would be inserted into the starting lineup and maybe Paul Areola as well to start in that Canada game. Maybe not if you want to keep Pulisic and start him both those 2 games, but we have said this a million times, and I think all of us are focused on the Canada game because it's the most exciting one, as we should be. Win your home games, get points on the road in CONCACAF World Cup qualifying. The 2 most important games in this window are El Salvador and Honduras at home.
The home games.
So I think you save Pulisic. As Doyle said, you save Weah, so I'd expect those 2 to come into the starting lineup. I assume the center backs will actually stay the same. Clearly, we have stated Anthony Robinson's probably going to play a lot of minutes. Tyler Adams has been the only guy who has played every single minute, and so you'd assume he sticks in the starting lineup. So the changes are probably those 2 on the wide spots, right back. Maybe you go with a safer option than Serginho Dest to go on the road and play against Canada. And then maybe you move one of the midfield 2 of McKennie and Musa. And then you can you could start the other one at home in the 3rd game. And then you could get some fresh legs in there for that middle game.
How many points? What should the expectation be?
7 points should be the expectation. And I think 7 points is doable.
Yeah, I kind of land on the 7 as well. A draw in Hamilton in frigid conditions, even with Davies and Eustachio out. All good as long as you get the 6 points in the other game.
These are the bogey. You cannot lose to El Salvador and Honduras at home and make the World Cup. These are the games.
You cannot drop points against them. You cannot drop points.
These are the games where it was Costa Rica at home in New Jersey in the last window, and then I'm missing one as well where they dropped home points to someone, right? No? Panama? Wow.
I mean,
they lost to Mexico.
Yeah. But I that's different. These are the games. These are the 2 games where you are going to be heavy favorites. Honduras is a mess right now. And El Salvador has shown that there's belief in how they play, but they are probably at a talent deficiency against every other team in this qualifying cycle. These are 2 games that have to be 3 points, unquestionable. And then the Canada game, if it's not a point, it's not the end of the world, but those 2 have to be 6 points.
Let me just make a real quick point about Honduras. They have been a mess, but for this window, they have Elise, Kyoto, and Lozano. This is the first time in all of qualifying that they've had that entire front 3. The U.S. should win this game, but that team is terrifying on the counter. Absolutely terrifying.
That's why they put them on ice. It's harder for Elise to run in an ice rink.
Welcome to beautiful St. Paul, Minnesota, where even the people in St. Paul are asking you why the hell you're here right now.
They were looking to put it in Lambeau, but they were unsure about the
yeah, exactly. Oh, you know what? That's they get in on that flight, and everybody in St. Paul is leaving. They're going to a resort in Mexico. They're going to the Caribbean. They're nobody comes here now. Like, you return with a sunburn. That's how this thing works. So you're not from here, are you? All right, let's get into it. Orlando City, onto our previews. We've done 8 so far, I want to say, of varying quality, as you could say about my haikus, and I think this is my worst, so I'm just like lowering the expectations for Orlando City off the jump. But here was 2021, metamorphosis. Poppy transformed the club, but the father is back. And I read this, and I hadn't thought about it once since last year, and I feel bad, Orlando City fans, because I understand how you might have chafed to have Joseph Martinez, after what happened last year and what you were able to do as a club, inserted into your haiku. And I don't think that was fair. I don't have him in this year, but I'm not proud of this one, but here we go. DK, Nani, gone. Can a new generation deliver hardware? It's just like an average one, but I think it does sum it up. You've kind of lost the leading lights of the previous project as it pertains to your attacking talent. You have this new generation.
You've moved into a more utilitarian phase.
Well, yeah. In this one in particular, I thought the artistry I thought was still there with the first 8, or at least you had flashes of it, but really none here. Mm-hmm. It's just straight down to business. So key signings: Cesar Araujo, that one's done. Midfielder out of Uruguay, where they did a bunch of shopping, including Facundo Torres, who was announced today. We'll get to him in a second. Reportedly, they're also going to get winger out of Argentina, Union Santa Fe. Gaston Gonzalez, but he won't be here until May. And then also reportedly, the number 9 they're going after is Erkan Kara out of Rapid Vienna, a number 9. He seems like a similar profile to the guy the Union signed in a way, like kind of fringe national teamer, 25, 26, scored a lot of goals in Austria, Denmark, etc. That's currently the report. The other move is Andre Pato, the comeback player of the year, re-signed, soon to be in like 10 months, comeback player of the year. What do you think of the business they've done so far, Doyle? Of course, Nani and DK gone, and now sort of this new group coming in.
Yeah, they've been busy, and it's the type of shopping that it looks very good on paper, right? Like when they made the Nani signing, I said, I understand why they did it. But when you sign an older DP, you have to understand that they are not going to be able to sort of carry the load over the course of the whole season. And that was just completely the story for Nani each of his 3 years. So they've gone in a different direction. They've signed, or they've targeted signing younger guys in the hopes that they can have guys who are just rounding into their best form as they approach the playoffs. And it makes sense. But, as always with MLS, with any league, you don't know how they're going to adjust. They might walk into the league and set it on fire like we've seen, so many players do, or they might take a year like Hani Mukhtar did last in, Adam Buksa, who might be sold for $10 million. Like these, even 8-figure players have taken time in this league. So while I like it on paper, Oscar Pereira is going to have his work cut out for him to make sure that all this talent, all this young talent, turns into a team real fast.
Let's do our star spotlight, and it's Facundo Torres. It's got to be. His nickname is awesome. El Cuervo, the Crow. 21-year-old, sort of the gym, Piñarol. I mean, you're talking about in that club, Diego Rossi, a Golden Boot winner, coming out of there. And this is interesting, by the way. Torres credits his sports psychologist for helping him break through into the first team in Uruguay. That psychologist, none other than the mother of a former star at both the club level in Uruguay, but also in MLS with LAFC, Diego Rossi. His mom is his sports psychologist. That's pretty fascinating. 16 goals, 15 assists in about 70 games. He's got, 10 or so games with Uruguay at this point. A winger who likes to be on his left foot is sort of the overall scouting report, whether it's coming in off the right side or on the left side. So TBD on which side he plays. But there are going to be big expectations in. But we also have two sides of this coin, right? Brian Rodriguez and what we've seen so far, indisputable talent, maybe not the end product. Diego Rossi, the end product and the talent. Dave, what do you think about this, like from a wider scale? Like zoom it back out. This investment, this profile, and there will be pressure on him given that they just let go their 2 best attacking players.
It's a new dawn for Orlando City. They've not been one of these teams. We've heard rumors about it a ton, and I guess they brought in. Whoa, I can't even remember the name of the young South American DP they brought in a couple years back and then just kept loaning him back down to South America. Does anyone have an idea? Not Brian
the
Roches.
Ecuadorian
Brian
kid,
Roches
right?
was Honduran, and that was
that's from a different era.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, besides that, this is a new dawn, and Carlos Rivas. This is a new dawn for Orlando, and it makes sense, right? This is a city that has such a strong connection through Latin America. There's a desirable nature to be there for a lot of people in South America and Central America, as well as communities for them to fit in. And so this felt like a logical conclusion for Orlando, and they kind of got lucky in which they did draft, or they'd say they did well. They did draft Daryl Dike. They were able to sell him. They did draft Chris Mueller. And so they were able to get through this time period and rebuild. And this feels like the future. You've got Mauricio Pereira, who's a veteran designated player. You've got guys like Pato and Vanderwater who have now been around for a little bit. And then you give an opportunity. I think for Torres, I think it's a good platform for him to be successful. I think it's a team that's going to be set up well to the things he wants to do well. And while he needs to be good, he doesn't need to carry the team from day one. And that's an ideal situation for a young signing like this.
Let me just throw it out.
And I think that's why they kept Pereira as the number 10, right? Because it just makes it so much easier if someone else kind of has a hand on the wheel, and you could play off of that. And I think that was the idea here. David, were you thinking about Alex Alvarado? Was that
I got the name.
South American
that was not it.
Yeah,
it was
not.
Josue Colman.
Yes.
It was Josue Colman.
Who was
That
signed the
Warren
same
Dean.
year as the other Paraguayan center forward was signed for Dallas, who also was...
Christian Coleman?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of Colmans. The Colmans didn't work.
Thank you, Weavy.
Yeah,
that was
that
going to
one,
tear my brain apart.
Yep. I had it on the tip of my tongue. I had to go back and look for it. Those are the moments that I live for here. 2,222 player to watch, Cesar Araujo, but then I think Gaston Gonzalez is going to be right on that line too. And look, Chris Mueller's gone as well. So you kind of have a turnover at the winger spots. Vanderwater stays. Benji Michel is there as well. But now it seems like Torres and Jimenez probably are the guys that you're trying to at least move into that position and then sell on. That seems to be the other thing with Orlando City here is that they're trying to get younger, trying to appreciate some assets, and trying to see if they can, join this marketplace and be a club that South American teams and South American prospects look at and say, well, that's a great jumping off point.
And I think it's part of a bigger picture for them as well, which is Oscar Pereira has done quickly with Orlando's academy similar things to what he did with Colorado and Dallas. And one of the things we've seen be successful for a club like Dallas is, even if they're not players out of your academy, entering that marketplace. So you've sold DK, Mueller goes, Facundo Torres you'd hope is next. I think that there are going to be 4 or 5 players through this Orlando academy over the next 2-3 years who start pulling in $1 million plus for sales. And this is a way to start to get on that road as well.
We have our mailbag question here from Doobie the Lion. Is Orlando in the preseason top 5 based on what's coming in this window so far? That's in the Eastern Conference. Doyle, where would you put them in the Eastern Conference hierarchy? Are they going to drop without these stars? Are they going to rise? Hold still?
6 different questions. Right I'm going to answer.
You're on extra time. You know how this works?
I'm going to answer.
Give me a list.
Oh, God. I'm going to answer Doobie's question, not Andrew's question.
Sweet.
Orlando's in the preseason top 5, not based upon what's coming in, but based upon the spine that they still have. Mm-hmm. They still have one of the best center back pairings in the league. They still have, in Pedro Gaese, I think one of the best goalkeepers in the league, even though the advanced numbers don't really love him. I still like Juan. I still love Sebastian Mendez and Junior Urso. I mean, obviously Mauricio Pereira fell off, but he, I still think he can be very good.
Are we going to get the João Moutinho MLS's back take here, or?
No, I'm retiring that one. Left back is an issue that they have to figure out. I think what they're returning, particularly up the spine, makes them not quite a favorite, but certainly in a list of credible challengers, though obviously they do need some of these signings to turn out really
And
well.
one of their issues last year was continuity in that group, right? Gaese was away for so much World Cup qualifying, Jackson Mendez as well. Janssen started the year hurt, and then Antonio Carlos got hurt. And so I think one of the keys to them is going to be, if they can have some consistency up that group, it becomes not just the strength of the team, I think one of the better ones in the league. And so that's where you make it easy on guys in the attack to sort of find their feet.
I just heard the siren, which means probably the buzzer is coming soon for us to obviously just completely
Shout
ignore.
out to the Gambia, by the way. Lowest seeded team in AFCON just got through against Guinea.
Here we go. Scott Hubbard asks, I had to get it in. Fully expect David Goss' theorem to apply for Vanderwater this year. Thoughts?
I expect it as well. I liked what I saw from him
What's your
individually. We just didn't get the full performance. The David Goss theorem is on board for Vanderwater. Breakout player of the year.
Oh, glass half full for Vanderwater, says Dave. Over under 15.5 combined goals from the number 9s. We're in mid preview form. We're not even going to acknowledge that. 15.5 goals.
I think Anders might have an actual aneurysm. Go to the standings and then we move.
No, come on. We haven't even talked about Alexander Pato. You cannot force me out of this. 15.5 goals. Right now it's Pato. It's
I don't want to talk about Alexander Pato. So are we considering the new guy that they're going to sign in this group?
Let's just say there's going to be a new guy because I think there is going to be a new guy.
Over 15.5 combined goals from the number 9.
I agree.
3.5 over under on Pato.
No one wants to talk about it. Go.
Over. Taking the over all day. You cannot stop me. Those are just glorious odds for me. This is fine. What's the meme, Doyle?
I don't know if you've looked at Pato's Instagram lately, but he apparently doesn't like to take shots.
That's going to be troublesome. My Pato cheerleading might be over for a little while. This is fine meme. What's the big concern? Weakness or pitfall? It's probably the goal scoring, right? Up top, or the lack of integration of the players that it does take a second year. The David Goss theorem applies, and they just don't have enough firepower, though they're still pretty solid defensively. So what's the prediction? Where are they going to be? They were 6th last year in the East.
Yeah,
Nashville is gone.
I think I have them between 4 and 7. I think they'll maybe flirt with a home game, and it's just to what Doyle said, that spine, and then I don't see other teams around them having gotten better. So I think they'll still be in that same position.
Yeah, that's about right for me as well. I could see him. I think I'm maybe a little bit more bullish on them than David is. I could see them cracking the top 3, though that maybe is a little bit of an outlier of an outcome. That said, if the new number 9 is legit, then things can go real right for this group in a hurry.
Yeah, I'm in the 4 to 7 range right now, and a lot of that is I don't know if they're going to get the 9, and I don't know who that guy is really, if I'm being honest with you. The Rapid Vienna streams have not been coming in on my side of things. All right, let's turn our collective attention to Texas and to FC Dallas. It's an AT&T 5G call to the field. Nico Estevez on the phone with us now. Nico, welcome to Extra Time. Welcome to the MLS head coaching ranks. You've been in and around this game here in North America for a while now.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you. Yeah, it's been some years here in America, and it's very, very happy and excited to take this job in FC Dallas.
So tell people a little about yourself who might not know that much and maybe have the bullet point of assistant to Greg Berhalter. Give us a little bit more of the spiel, who you are, what your influences are, what kind of coach are you?
I was coaching in Spain, in Valencia. I'm from Valencia originally, and I work in different clubs in the youth, also in Valencia Academy for 7-8 years, where I had the opportunity to coach a lot of players that are now playing in first division and also playing for the national team. And then from there, it came an opportunity to train in second B division. That is the third division in Spain. And for Huracan, it was a brand new club. And then things went well as a head coach there for 2 years. And Valencia called me again to coach their reserve team. And then I was there 1 year, and I had the opportunity and the experience to be an interim head coach for the first team for 2 games, Copa del Rey against Nastic and La Liga game against Real Madrid, and came back to.
Wait, that's your one La Liga game? Real Madrid? That's how the draw goes?
Yeah,
you got the 2 games, and it's Madrid. It's got to be Real. That's incredible.
That was incredible, and then. When I finished the season, new people came into the club, and they wanted to make a change and bring other coaches for the reserve team and other teams in the academy. and I had to look for a different another opportunity. I had the opportunity during my time in Valencia that year to meet Greg Berhalter. He was in Spain and in Europe visiting different clubs and see how they work. As you know him, he's very curious. He's always trying to learn new things. And then I had the opportunity he came 1 week to watch our trainings. And then we interchanged information, feedback about the training sessions and knowledge. And then from there, we built a good relationship. When he got the job in Columbus, he was always asking me about players. And I did a couple report of some players that he was interested. And me and my family was ready to have an opportunity abroad from Spain. And we're looking for different countries. And I asked Greg if he knew if it was any opportunity in the United States for me. And then he said, yeah, we could, you could come here if you don't mind and see how we work. And we need help to build the academy. And I visit them. I like the idea, his style of play, all his ideas and how they were building the club in Columbus. And so also a good place for my family and my kids to be raised. And we made this step into 2014.
Now here you are.
And then obviously you follow Greg from Columbus to the U.S. men's national team and was an assistant there and now taking over as a head coach at FC Dallas. Were you always looking to come and be a head coach again? And why Dallas as the situation to step away from the national team going into a World Cup year?
Yeah, I think it's always something that Greg and me have talked. My idea to come to other country is to first know the culture, understand better the needs and how I can help and how I can grow as a coach also to adapt to a new league and to adapt a new country. And then during this time, my conversations with Greg it was always like it would be a moment, right, that I will have to step as a head coach. And these things sometimes happen. You don't know when it's going to happen. And you could see this year it was a lot of needs in the league for new head coaching position. And then Dallas contacted the federation, Greg and Ernie, to ask them to interview me. And the things went well. And I saw Dallas as a place. And I told Greg, I think if he's knowing FC Dallas as I know really well, and the good friendship that I have with Lucci and how we always had a great relation, and seeing that the club has a very clear identity is something that stood out to me, and I thought it could be a good place to start. And of course, you always have ambitions, and you feel secure that you are applying or not applying, like interviewing for that position, because they are interested in you. And Greg also saw that it could be a good opportunity and a club that could fit my qualities, and everything went in that direction, and here we are.
It certainly is a link that makes sense with your background in the game, whether it be youth development into this position, and then your understanding now of the culture here. And I'm curious to hear from you, in your words, what you see in American soccer culture, or in the soccer culture in Major League Soccer as compared to what you've seen in the past. What have you learned? What has stood out to you? How would you describe it?
Well, when I came in 2014, the progression has been incredible, as you could see, and it's real how all the teams has built these fantastic academies, how they are developing young players, and then how a lot of players are going to Europe, and also the players that stay here, how they can get the positions in the national team, and they can get a call-up from the national team and play this international soccer, right? And when I came, what stood out to me is, and I told Greg after, being in different tournaments and see more games and training with the players, it's not a problem of quality. There is a ton of quality in the country. There is a lot of talent. And I think it was more and it's something that MLS has invested a lot in the federation also, is how you coach these players, is how you help them to grow in the right way to be pro. And then I think it was a little bit of lack of this situation that I think in the pathway wasn't clear. Now you have reserve teams. Now you have other leagues that help the players to get this path and are more competitive that the federation also created. And I think everything that it was done between MLS and the federation, it helped all these players to get in a position that they are right now. But I think for the youth, one of the things is sometimes you see teams that, they can run all day, they can press all day, but when they have the ball, they want to play the same speed. And sometimes they have to find the pause and then they calm and then understand what is happening. And then from there, you can see now how more teams are trying to play, are trying to have more patience with the ball. And it's not like you have to play short every ball. If not, it's about or long possessions. It's about understanding, and you could see how different clubs have different identities and how well they are doing. We can talk about Red Bull, we can talk about FC Dallas, we can talk about different other academies in the country that have a defined style and how they are developing their players based on how they do. Also, Philly, you could see how many players are coming from the academy also.
You mentioned Philly, but I think what FC Dallas has done probably over the last 2-3 years has been unprecedented in MLS, which is the development and then selling of players at such a high rate and such a high level. Obviously, your background with Valencia, I think, is probably a decent connection in terms of a club having an existence where you are a high developer, but you do sell those players on. How do you be successful then as a club? How do you win things? How do you keep fans engaged when you acknowledge that while we have great young talent, we will sell them when the opportunity shows itself?
Yeah, I think it was a good learning experience from all of us during what happened last year. I think sometimes you because you did before, you feel like if you sell a player, you're gonna be fine, and then maybe it was a little bit of rush on signing other players, and then maybe we have to be more patient and then sign the right player, be prepared, have different options because we know the targets who could be the targets, right? In the case of Pepe, right, in the last Justin Che, we knew, and now it was how we can replace them. That we feel that we have a strong roster, but also can develop players to go and to Europe. And then if this happens, be ready to make the next step, but no rush, because sometimes what happens is you feel in the need. And then you make the wrong decision. And it's about, okay, be calm. And, okay, it's not an option now that can help us, then we wait. If it's real option that can help us to improve the team, we do it. But if not, we don't have to rush. And I think in the past, sometimes they feel rushed because they need to sign a player. And sometimes we have to be calm and be patient and say, okay, this is the right one, or this is not the right one to replace the player. But be prepared. I think this is what we've been doing. This is all the areas that we've been talking of in the off season. And if this happens, how we're going to react and how we're going to move, right?
Two players I want to hear about before we let you go, Nico, and get back to work. Jesus Ferreira, who you're very familiar with from the national team, and now will be, I assume, your 9 or your false 9, or however you want to define that. And then Paxton Pomykal, who's been this guy that we've just sort of been waiting for to break out for a while now, and his body has not allowed him to do so. Tell me about the role that Jesus is going to play in this team, and what do you think you can get out of Paxton in 2022?
I think Jesus, and because with the national team, we've been using him as a 9. In the last game, the friendly in December, he played a little bit more as a winger coming inside. Jesus has this ability that he's so intelligent and so smart. He understands the space really well, that in any position at top, he can play well. But the way we're looking for also is not having Pepe is also use his strength as a 9 that can stretch a little bit the field and then come in the moment that surprise the opponent, make a layoff and bounces that give us advantages, and also float a little bit in that position against center backs that they won't be marking man-to-man the striker. And then what he also has this aggression to run in the penalty box is something that we want to encourage him, because he has a good feet, he is a good finisher, and then he can score goals. Even sometimes like we don't see him scoring a lot of goals with the head, but he has a really nice movement and really good, nice timing to attack the ball. And it's about how we can create these attacks and goal scoring opportunities that allow him to keep scoring goals. But also we know he's a striker that is going to assist a lot of goals. And then we have to find the balance between both. And Paxton is a player that he needs patience because he's coming from injuries. He needs to feel well. He needs to feel fit. I think he needs to feel healthy to be confident in himself, because he has the soccer, he has the skills, he has the technique, he has the intelligence. And you can see in this first week of training, right, how good he is, how good he understands, how quickly he learned. And now it's about keep him fit, keep him healthy, and he will be able to bring us a lot of quality in the midfield.
All right, new manager for FC Dallas in 2022, but the soul of the club remains the same. We'll see if you guys can take a step forward. We appreciate the time, Nico.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, David. It's been fun having time with you, and anytime you want, we can talk.
Big thanks to Nico for joining us. A little introduction to who he is, what his background is, and what you might see in Dallas this year. Here's the haiku from 2021. Play your kids. It works. Can it win MLS Cups? Maybe it takes more. Certainly sounds like it probably takes more. Here's the haiku for 2022. Sell your kids. Big bucks. But find a middle ground too. If not, status quo. Like, they just sort of seem to be a little bit stuck, which is what both of these poems are getting at, which is what's the next step and can they take it? We understand that one side of this works spectacularly, like best in class. The academy, the developmental path, the player pipeline to Europe now, that thing is open, it's thriving, it's lucrative. It's awesome for FC Dallas. They just sold a player for $20 million who they came through their academy to their USL1 team, etc. They just will probably get millions of dollars more for Justin Shea and so many more before, but like, what is the first team side of this? And not the we can sell young players side, the we can win games, accumulate points, and get a trophy side of things. What is this year for Dallas in your mind, Doyle, with Nico Estevez? And what do you think of the signing with a little time to marinate on it and listening to him put his words down and his vision down?
I mean, it's an interesting signing, right? It does show how plugged in Dallas is to the U.S. national team program and kind of vice versa. I liked the way Greg Berhalter's crew teams played. I thought those teams were so much fun. Now, that hasn't really translated to how the national team has played. They've been much more defensive than open and fun and attacking. So I don't know if Nico Estevez is going to lean towards that side of it, or if we're going to sort of return to the type of attack that, from 2014 to 2019 sort of defined the crew. But either way, it kind of has to be a reboot for Dallas, right? Like, you lost a $20 million. It's sold, but like, you lost a $20 million striker. They made a ton of other moves sort of throughout the team, not necessarily starters, but like significant players. And so it's gonna, like, clearly the work of what the last 5 years for Dallas has been continues for Nico Estevez, but also clearly, like, he needs kind of a fresh slate or a clean slate to kind of get it right. Because for all the talk about Pepe and, we Pomacall and Ferreira and all this, like, the reason Dallas were bad last year is because their defense fell apart. Their defense absolutely fell apart, and they weren't helped by the goalkeeping situation at all either. And if they don't get that right this year, it's not going to matter how well Jesus Ferreira plays or Pomykal plays, or even, if they get Paul Arriola. Like, they have to fix the back line. And they have to fix, what happened in goal. And I think they need to take a real long look at D-mid as well. And that has to be job one. All the other stuff, they'll keep selling players, but the fans aren't going to be happy with it if they sell players and make a nice tidy profit, but still give up 55 goals a season.
There could be some big spending coming. We'll get to that in the mailbag question. And otherwise, here are the key signings. Nanu out of Portugal. Martin Paes is a goalkeeper out of the Netherlands who they got on a 6-month loan. And then we're just going to assume, for all intents and purposes, that Paul Arriola is on this team based on the quality of the reporting and sort of it seems inevitable that release will come down the pipe. So let's do Star Spotlight on Paul Arriola. I would assume that he would be the star of this team. And again, we are making some assumptions here, but around $2 million in allocation as a starting point, that is a record all time in this league. And when you set a record in that way, a lot is expected of that player. He is also a 26-year-old in his prime U.S. men's national team player with very good production in this league, even for a DC team that struggled at times last year. He is the star, I think. Dave, does that jive with how you see this team?
Yeah, right now, based off the way the roster is set up, I don't know how much time we're going to spend on Frank O'Hara, and that's a different conversation to have. And I think there's some openings in midfield that might get filled, and you can talk about Jesus Ferreira being that first ever DP to be signed coming up through the one club's homegrown setup, and then Paxton Pomykal we hope as well. But for Paul Arriola, the investment alone, the record-setting transfer or the record-setting trade in MLS for allocation money puts him in that spotlight. And I think there's a lot of stuff with Paul Arriola, but you're getting a player who works tirelessly when he's on the field, can fit with a couple different players, can play on the left or on the right. And I think when you look at a team with a lot of young players, sometimes you just need someone that they can look at and say, well, we know what we're going to get from him. When you step on the field, that not everything will fall on your shoulders, that Paul Arriola will have that level of performance. And I think he's a guy who can nurture young players because of the process he went through, coming through in LA and going down to Mexico and then coming back into MLS as a designated player. And I think he's someone that a lot of young players can look up to and sort of follow. So a lot of it makes sense for Dallas. You also now look at a guy at his age who can fill a role for a while. And if you are bringing in young players and selling and bringing the next guy in, you at least have a starting spot that you have nailed down for the next 4 or 5 years that you don't have to worry about.
What's a good season for Paul Arriola in a strictly box score sense, Doyle?
8 and 15, the amount of money.
15. Whoa!
Wow.
Yeah, the amount of money that
I was
they
going to say
paid
8 and
for
8.
him.
Yeah.
No, $2 million of allocation cash for 8 and 8. Plus, he's trying to make a World Cup. 8 and 8 doesn't get him to the World Cup. Like Paul Arriola needs to go, and he's had double-digit assists before a couple years ago, right?
Nope. I'm looking at it right now. His best season for DC was 25 starts, 7 goals, 8 assists, and 19 full season numbers, about 2,500 minutes, 6 goals, 2 assists. Last year in 1,400 minutes, he got 6 goals and 4 assists. So if you double those minutes and you say you're going to double the production, that would be up to 12 and 8.
So 15 is probably too far out. I thought he had a 10 assist season. I guess very wrong about that one. But he the amount they're investing in him and what's at stake for him personally, he's got to live up to that investment. Double digits in either goals or assists and close to it in the other one seems like the absolute floor.
22 player to watch is Jesus Ferreira, who might just be the star of the team as well. He might truly be the star. Homegrown, attacking player, a guy who has put up double digits, I believe. I'll have to go back and check that now, but at least close to it. Jesus Ferreira this year, Dave, as a 9, as more of a space merchant, as Nico seemed to imply at times. He's a DP now. He's no longer sort of the homegrown player that they're bringing up. He is the man in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
that's fun. That's exciting. That's what we want this academy thing to be. Not only $20 million sales, but also DPs developed out of your academy.
And you look at a guy who likes to kind of float around and pick up the ball and create for his teammates. So now you have Paul Arriola coming off the wing. Can he link up with him and help create chances? It sounds like potentially a big signing coming in as well that could play on the other wing. There's expectations that Jader O'Brien was going to be a goal scorer. He was not that guy last year. Can he do that this year? And so Ferreira's role as center forward is more than just goal scoring for himself. But it was interesting how Nico Estevez talked about it and said, we don't get to see it in his game as much because he hasn't been around goal, but he is elite in many of those things and the way he does it. And I saw him come up as a young kid as a center forward because FC Dallas just didn't have them in the academy. And that was the role he was forced to play. And while he does it in a different way, he can be really successful at it. And I like the idea from a narrative point of view, I got you, Weeby, of him accepting this contract, him wanting to be this guy, right? He said, no, I'm not looking to just get a move and go somewhere else. I want to be a star player for this team if I sign this contract. And so I think you're looking at a guy who's ready to take that mantle on and understand sort of what his role has to be.
I hope the best for Jesus Ferreira. It certainly seems like he has a guy in his corner in the manager who truly believes in him and has an idea, a very clear idea about how he's best used. Our mailbag question could be Paxton Pomykal, and I'd pose that one to you, Doyle. We don't want to build up any expectations, right?
No.
We want to just avoid that entirely.
I mean, you heard, I think Nico Estevez said it. Like, if he's healthy, he has the soccer. And it's worth noting that Pomykal is being used in central midfield. It's very early in the preseason, but they're not wasting him on the wing this year. So, we'll see. But, I felt this way about John O'Brien for 5 straight years, 2 decades ago. And he just never got healthy. So, knock on wood.
I want to correct myself. Jesus Ferreira, 8-9 is his best season. He's an 8-6 season as well. So he has some room to grow here. That's probably why you give him the DP deal. They hope to see him grow into that in Dallas this year. Over under via Anders, who's probably going to hit us with a buzzer here soon. Over under $9.5 million spent on transfers. We'll just say, again, reportedly, that they've already spent $2 million, let's say. We'll just say GAM to dollars is an equal deal. So that's $7.5 million they'd have to spend. That sounds like Alan Velasco. That's what it sounds like around in that zone. Do you think they'll get this thing done? Do we think they'll go over, or will it be under?
I think they'll definitely go over. It seems like they're already going to be there. And the other thing I liked about what Nico Estevez says, and I look at it with the Nanu signing, is rushing and being ready. And so when you look at, okay, they needed a right back. They obviously didn't get one last year. Imatumwasi spent way too much time there. Making loans until the buys are ready and being more mobile, being more prepared. And so I think this is a club that it's not just going to be Velasco. I would expect that Dallas would make other signings over the course of this year.
We shall see. This is fine. The big weakness, concern, pitfall. You kind of covered that, right, Doyle? Defensive issues.
Yep.
Seems like Nkosi Tafari and Hedges are going to be your starters in the back. Maybe Hedges can be more healthy. Maybe can hold it down a little bit. Still, I think D-mid is... that you mentioned it. That's a spot where you're like, do we have the pieces here? Quignon last year didn't exactly cover himself in glory. Why could this be this their year, Doyle? Could they take a step forward this year? Could they challenge for a trophy? Do you see it?
Yeah, I think they could take a step forward if Hedges is healthy the whole time and Tafari, looks the part, which he did for good chunks last year. That's a pretty intuitive center forward combo, and then they get center back combo rather, and they get a full year out of Jimmy Maurer like they did in 2020 when he was excellent. That's a very easy way to be 5-6 points better than they were last year. But to take a step forward to contender status, too much stuff to list would have to go right for Dallas to go from where they were last year to contender status. It just seems like a small chance.
You think it hinges on Hedges and not that the David Goss theorem, that they think Jose Antonio Martinez will be better this year than he was last year?
My money would still be on Hedges.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Maybe I'll be wrong.
Look, the buzzer worked again. It was broken for a while. It was broken, and we went 2 minutes past because when you give us time, we are going to take that rope. All right, let's get to the Houston Dynamo.
Do we have predictions
manager
on Dallas?
Well, we did. He said he's kind of out. You could say playoffs or no. How about that? I'm going to say not yet a playoff team.
Yeah, I'll put them on the
West.
line right out as well.
That's where I'm going to have them at.
Yeah.
Yep. Houston Dynamo, Paulo Nagamura. We had a wonderful chat with Paulo for a number of minutes, and those minutes were wiped out by an internet gremlin that just took down his entire browser. So here is a truncated version of that interview. Wanted you to at least get a feel for Paulo, and then we'll get you Dynamo preview. It's an AT&T 5G call to the field.
So, Paulo, one of the things you talk about Houston's history, obviously what they've done on the field, but one of the things we've always talked about with Houston is the city, the diversity, the size of the city, and of course the connection to Mexico with a large Mexican-American community and the geography just being right across the border. Does that come into your thinking about how you want this team to play, how you want this culture to be built, that connection to the different parts and communities in the city?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as a coach, there's this talk with Pat Onstad and the ownership. I think we have to think on a very holistic way. We have to connect with the fans. We have to connect with the city. And yes, definitely that's something that we consider looking forward when we scout players, the way that we want to play. So absolutely, I think it has to have a connection there with the city of Houston.
Do you expect to have, Paulo, another big name signing come in? We'll ask you about Sebastian Ferreira in just a second, but one of the things with Ted Siegel, with Pat coming in, he said, I wouldn't have taken this job if I didn't have the resources to go out and compete on a different level. Do you expect come opening day or soon afterwards to have another big piece?
Look, we have the ability to add pieces. We have the ability to add DPs. We are looking into players that we feel that gonna help not only on the field but develop the culture that we want to bring it back to Houston. So yes, hopefully we can add those pieces before the season starts. But we're definitely working here and scouting and making sure that we're gonna bring the right pieces in place.
So give us the breakdown, though. Big center forward coming out of Paraguay, Sebastian Ferreira. It hit as we were on the show last time, and we were all very excited to hear about a move like this. What's he like? What can he bring? What should Houston fans expect?
Absolutely. Look, and we scout Sebastian for numerous games and for a long time. We knew he would fit right away. We believe he's going to fit right away. The way that he plays is he's a great goal scorer. He's been consistently scoring in South America. But the good thing about his game as well is he's a worker. He's going to work defensively as well. He's not that only that center forward that is just waiting for service or working around the box. He will be that guy that is gonna be a big contributor defensively as well. So we're very pleased that we could add a piece like that. And again, I think hopefully can have a good year, a good impact right away, right off the bat when we start the season.
Last one for you, Paulo. I know you don't want to give too much away. I'm going to assume you're going to play a 4-3-3. That's going to be an assumption that I will make, and then I'll, the eye test will tell me something more. But we have to set expectations, or we're trying to for every team in the league. Help us set expectations for the Houston Dynamo. What are the right expectations to have for your club in 2022?
Well, let's put it this way. Like you already answered my question. I don't like to share too much, but we're gonna be a team. We're gonna look to be a team that is on front foot. We're gonna be aggressive. I expect my players to be like I was when I was a player, competitive guys on the field. So we're gonna try to be aggressive offensively, defensively, but enjoying the game as well, playing with the ball. So that's as much as I can share right now with you guys. But hopefully we can have another discussion. We can go a little bit deeper on how we want to approach the game. But like I said, you guys are gonna have to watch and make your own assumptions right now.
All right, it's all about our eyes. We'll see what we see, and we will check back in with you in a couple months probably. Paulo Nagamura, the manager of the Houston Dynamo. Thanks, Paulo.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, apologies for missing some of that interview there. We can sort of give you the cliff notes, which is that Paulo Nagamura wants you to see for yourself. He is not going to tell you intimate details about the way he wants to play or the way that this team will play. You'll have to take some hints there about his background with Peter Vermes. He did say in the part of the interview that was lost forever that he considers himself part of the Peter Vermes tree, and I think he'd be the first real branch. Kerry Zavagnin has always stuck around as that associate head coach, so I think Paulo's carrying the torch right now. Here is your haiku from 2021. Tab says, press, press, press. Are the playoffs within reach? It's a big question. We got the answer to that question. It was no. And Tab Ramos' time with the Dynamo ended. A new era has begun. Pat Onstad leading the soccer side of things. Ted Siegel on the ownership side. They say they're going to be more ambitious. Here's their haiku for 2022. A new dawn, new day. Oh, and a new culture too. Progress is progress. And I say progress is progress because I kind of don't think this is going to be a playoff team. So they're going to be looking for things to hang their hat on, like, say, a more competitive culture that better sets them up for future success, like maybe a young DP forward coming in and scoring enough goals to introduce a new star into the system, like maybe another signing, which I think we got in from Paulo there. What is this year for the Dynamo, in your opinion, Dave?
Like you said, I think it's having something to hang your hat on going into the following year, having a clear identity of how this team wants to play, reconnecting with the fan base. I think back in a dream scenario to the Columbus teams the year before and the first year under Tim Bezbachenko and his group of they put some of the pieces in place and then you bring in that Lucas Arion star later on, but it was sort of re-identifying who you were, who could be usable from the group you came in going forward. And so I think you're looking at a Houston team that by the end of the year, do you establish in your mind that Tim Parker is that guy, that teenage Hadebi's that guy, that Fafa Picault and Zach Valentin? I think there's a number of players on this team that have been part of winning groups in MLS in the past that could be a part of one again. How does it fit in under your idea? So I think this should be a Houston team that you'd hope competes throughout the year. And last year, there was kind of a bright spot right at the beginning, and then it dried up pretty quickly. From my point of view, I'm very excited about Coco Carrasquilla. I love watching him play. And when you think of Paulo Nagamura and then you think of modern players, obviously he's at a different level, but I think he could be special. And so I think there's something to be excited about for Houston fans.
Sebastian Ferreira is certainly something to be excited about. Coming over from Club Libertad, the record-setting signing in club history, young center forward. Daniel Steres, another signing for them to provide depth on that back line. A new goalkeeper in Steve Clark. You assume he's going to be the starter for them. And Sebastian Ferreira is our star spotlight. What would you need in year one from a young center forward who has this sort of price tag on them? And in MLS terms, these days, it's still a big number, Doyle, but it's not like the upper echelon.
No. There's
There's got to be more, I would think, here. But Sebastian Ferreira can't be expected to carry this alone.
No, and you know, I like Carrasquilla, and they still have Darwin Quintero and Fafa Picault, Corey Baird, Tyler Pat. So they have some like solid veteran guys, though he is going to be asked to be a star. It feels like double, you know, he's a $5 million number 9, so it feels like it's not too much to ask for double-digit goals. And hope for more than that. Hope for not just double-digit goals, but like looking the part of a guy who can be a foundational piece of this team, and you know, potentially what, you know, Mauro Manotas was for a couple of years when you know, he was, you know, led them on a deep playoff run one year, and then, you know, was one of the best players in the U.S. Open Cup, you know, which they won the subsequent year. So I would imagine that that's what they're hoping for, and you know, hope for that, and maybe you get a little bit more.
2222 player to watch. I just have question marks here. We went and like dug through the roster. There are 3 academy guys that could come under this, but I think all of them have unavailable next to their name right now for various reasons. This is sort of like we talked about with Dallas. Like, they have this conveyor belt going. Like, the Dynamo have never been able to get that going.
I think it's coming. It's not. Paul Holliker has come in and done good work. I think there's been a disconnect in the club, obviously, because you have people at the first team who have been scrambling to get performances at the first team level and lacked resources to be able to look across the academy setup. But from everyone that I talk to in the academy, you know, ranks across the U.S., they feel like it's improved in Houston, that there are players coming through that are going to be capable of playing at a first-team level. I'd argue Marcelo Palomino already is, and he played pretty well in the USL Championship last year. So is it for this year or next year? No. Is Houston going in the right direction? I do believe it. That we can finally say that that is the case.
And the mailbag question is, what is a successful first year for Nagamura and Onstad on the soccer side? We'll start with our over-under to kind of answer this question. It's 3.5 away wins if you recall, they were 0-11-3 on the road last year. Well, that's no good. That's not going to get it done.
I mean,
3.5. You go under or over on that?
I'm going under. Yeah.
Okay.
It's actually 0-11-6. It wasn't 4. It was 0-11-6.
There's not a lot of they have some nice players on this team, and Nagamura might end up being a great coach, but this is still a team that went 0-11-6 on the road last year and have been at or near the bottom of the table for most of the past half decade.
They should be much better defensively. I mean, Clark's an improvement. Carrasquilla wasn't here for the full year last year, neither was Estevez. So you'd hope that they'd be much improved defensively, which gives them at least a platform to contend and not be blown out in games or have to be chasing very early on.
But all this, you're going to say the under.
Yeah, I'm going to say
now,
the
right? Yeah, I was going to say. I'm going to say the under on that as well. If you go look, there are not very many teams in the league actually that got non-playoff teams, which I think we would all consider the Dynamo right now on paper to be a non-playoff team. There are not very many teams that got more than 3. So we'll see. We'll see for them. How about this? This is fine meme, the big weakness, the concern, the pitfall. Is this just a talent issue, Doyle? Just hey, we're just not good enough?
Yeah, I think talent's the big one. Tactically last year, their big thing was they just were not able to efficiently progress the ball from their defensive half into the attacking third. Carrasquilla maybe fixes that, but that also feels like a this is fine type thing because they haven't addressed it with personnel. Maybe they can address it tactically, but it was just they were not good at that last year, and the same players are back.
Okay. I guess we did the why this could be their year, and it doesn't sound like from a trophy perspective that we think it will be the Dynamo's year, but there's no shame in that. Look, there's a reason why Nagamura has come in and talked about culture a lot and not about trophies and not about the playoffs and not about these things that, may reasonably be out of reach in year one. But what isn't out of reach is, deciding on a coherent style of play and sticking to it and building around it and having a better culture than you did before and hopefully going forward. So what's a realistic prediction? Is this sniffing playoffs? Is it not dead last, but not sniffing the playoffs?
I think if we are sitting here on, I don't even know when decision day is, in November of 2022, if we feel similar to Houston as we did at the end of this year to Montreal and DC, I think that would be a place, right? A team that at some point was in a playoff conversation, contended at some point, and when you look at the depth chart and when you look at the club, you feel better than you did 12 months ago. I think that's a positive for Houston.
Yeah, I think that's a win,
that's a goal,
too.
but that means they're not in the playoffs.
Anybody have them in the playoffs? Anybody have them sniffing the playoffs here?
No.
As they stand right now, I don't. I think it. Yeah, we'll see. It could be that, or it could be another tough season as they sort of hit the reset button and get some new faces in and go from there. There's the Houston Dynamo, 412-060-MLS. Let us know. Anything on those teams? Anything you want on your club? Hit us up. We're always open. Continuing our positional rankings, we've done goalkeepers, we've done center backs. We are on to the outside backs today, and we have some questions about how we should define this, Doyle, and maybe you can help us think about it in terms of wing backs versus true outside backs. There is a difference. How did we make these decisions before we give you our left backs and right backs? How did we think about it in your mind?
So I'm generally okay with grouping wing backs and fullbacks together because almost across the board, whether you're playing in a 5 or a 4 or 3, the wing backs and the fullbacks fill sort of the same hybridized role. You are defensive players who have to get forward and attack and provide width in the final third. Now, there are some bells and whistles at certain clubs. We know for years Pep has had his fullbacks sort of pinch inside and become ad hoc secondary central midfielders. That's something that we've seen in MLS a little bit from both fullbacks and wingbacks. But in general, fullbacks and wingbacks serve the same position. They are the hybrid players in the modern game. The one sort of outlier in that regard, who we debated about endlessly in the pre-show, is Julian Gressel. Julian Gressel plays as a right wing back for DC United, but he's not really a hybrid player. He's almost more like an old school wide midfielder in a 4-4-2 who's just asked to stay wide and pump in cross after cross after cross. Like, he will track back, but not in the way that a typical wing back has to. Even someone, Kevin Paredes, who plays left wing back for DC, he plays it very differently than Julian Gressel did. So we went back and forth on this before ultimately throwing up our hands and deciding that Gressel would have to be considered in the same group as fullbacks and wingbacks. Otherwise, we would sort of dice the positional specificity down to such a level as to mean almost nothing. And
that last
when
sentence,
would we ever do that?
That last sentence is just, make that into a haiku. That is poetry. So get that idea down on paper. We had Brooks Lynn in the right backs as the fifth right back. And if you're talking about deliverable of service, he's probably number one. Like, he would be one, but we struggled a little bit there. Number 4 was Brooks Lennon, another guy who big for his service. Roman Metanera of Minnesota United was 3. Alex Roldan was 2, and Aaron Herrera was our number 1, with honorable mentions, Dave, going to Alistair Johnson and Keegan Rosenberry, who have sort of, again, to go back to like the hybridization, have played right back, have played right wing back too, but have mostly recently played right center back in a 3-man group there. What do you think about this group of right backs?
I think that this was a position of strength across the league a few years ago. And I actually think you could argue our left back group may be even better than this one. And in looking across the league, and even just normally at times fullback for good teams in MLS, you say this is a solid player. Maybe a Kim Moon-Wan gets there. Maybe Mbaizo takes a step this year. But it feels like there's Julian Araujo round out his game better. But it feels like the gap is pretty large between the ones who are in this conversation and a bunch of teams who you don't even know who to say for them. But I would say that there is really good quality at the top. Aaron Herrera, we heard the rumors about Serie A last year. 2 ways. He's if you take away the 2 big mistakes in the playoffs that he made, which are almost game killers for RSL, he has been solid defensively. He is a nightmare 1v1 defending. He also played at center back for a few games for RSL. Did not look out of place there because he is such a physical specimen. He can cover ground up and down, and he's a difference maker 1v1 attacking and service. So he is by far, I think, number 1. And then we had a couple guys to debate and kind of move around, but it felt like, I think to most of us, this top 3 was sort of in one group, and then 4 through 8 or 9 or 10 was a different conversation.
Yep. How about left backs? Here we go. Ryan Hollingshead is number 1 off the top for us at FC Dallas. DeJuan Jones had some number 1 votes, but we settled on Hollingshead. Kai Wagner at 3. Daniel Lovitz at 4 out of Nashville. We felt pretty strongly about those top 4. And then Kevin Paredes, Doyle, you made an executive decision. You would have not allowed any other way. He is in at number 5 on this list. And I said it before. Taylor Twellman says DC value him at $8 or $9 million.
Doyle will do Paredes. Can I just say real quick? I voted DeJuan Jones first in my best 11 at left back. He had a better season last year than Ryan Hollingshead. Hollingshead's done it for more years and has shown that he is a unique soccer player across the field. That's why he comes in at number 1. Anyone who debates that, I think that's fair, and maybe I even did this wrong if I voted DeJuan Jones number 1. But I just want to throw that out there in terms of the top of this conversation. Doyle, what do you think about Kevin Paredes' evaluation from
great transition.
From
just
Europe?
Perfect.
I mean, I love Kevin Paredes, and he's a different type of player from Brendan Aronson in terms of like where you use him on the field. But he has that Brendan Aronson thing where he is always in transition. He just has he understands when those moments are coming a split second faster than most of the other guys on the field. And in the modern game, that's all like one of the most valuable attributes you can have. But then on top of it, he is a borderline elite athlete, and he is just rugged as hell in the cage match. Like, if you get him into 1v, he's an 18-year-old kid last year. He was a monster in 1v1s. And I'm not talking about, like, dribbling guys doing a 1v1. I'm talking about going up and taking the ball off of someone. All that, like, that nasty CONCACAF stuff. Kevin Paredes has that in his blood. So I'm not surprised at all to the DC are expecting probably close to 10 million for him. You guys didn't fight back when I put him on my top 5 ahead of guys like George Bello, who's a good young player, but I do like Paredes more. It's like he could rocket up this list. That said, to me, Ryan Hollingshead is still an easy number 1. His ability to get forward and then come inside and not be an ad hoc D-mid, but to be an ad hoc playmaker. He hits passes that no other fullback in this. I'm talking about like little slip balls in zone 14 to put Pepe in 1v1 with the key. Like, he was doing that regularly last year. Ryan Hollingshead is like the best soccer player that nobody pays attention to in this league. And I wish that Greg Berhalter and Bruce Arena before him had paid attention to Hollingshead, starting in about 2016 or so. Because
all right, those are fullbacks here.
Oh, let me jump in real quick on the right backs. You raised a good point, David, that it's not as strong a position as it has been in the past. Anton Tinnerholm is hurt. Kyle Duncan is playing in Belgium. Dallas have sold $15 million worth of right backs over the past few years. So there's been a talent drain. That's the type of thing that happens for
Richie
any league in the world that is
Richie
good at producing players.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're going to lose them. Mm-hmm. Richie as well.
Any thoughts? Let us know.
Yep.
We put these out on Twitter. You can.
I wanted to vote
have it
for
out with
Anton
us.
Tinnerholm, by the way, and I was told that we weren't allowed to, so I want that out there as well.
Not true.
I was told.
You do whatever you want.
You can vote for him.
He would be there if he was healthy, and he may be back there. We'll see what happens. Anders said we had no time for mailbag, and I can't bring myself to agree with that. This is for Dave. What's the deal with the Pa Moduka move to North Texas and MLS Next Pro? Also give us a scouting report on Luke McNaughton, just the second ever CPL transfer, it seems like, from Pacific, Pa Moduka's club, to Toronto FC and Bob Bradley. What's the lowdown here? What's your thoughts on Pa and Luke McNaughton? Or have we already done this and I forgot?
We didn't. I don't think we did Pa because I don't think it had been announced.
We did it in the privacy of the group chat.
Yes, potentially. I know. I talked to Pa a little bit. Obviously, he's got a lot going on. I know he's really excited. He obviously interviewed with FC Dallas, didn't work out at that level, and then they came back to him when Eric Quill went to, I believe, Columbus, who had been the head coach at North Texas. And I think there's a feeling that he accomplished a lot at Pacific, set them up for success, a club that's probably going to be fairly locally based now. Developing players, pushing players through. And so now his chance to sort of progress in his career, and he's a guy who takes so much from every experience he has. And so I just think coming in to a different region, to a different club, a different philosophy, all these things is going to be big for his development as a coach. And he clearly is the perfect guy for what Dallas is looking for. He's played all over the world. He understands different styles. He can connect with players from all different backgrounds. And he has already now shown he can progress young players from potential to professional development and then even potentially sold on. So it's, I think, a really good move for him. I am sure over the next year, every time someone else gets let go, his name will continue to come up as a potential MLS head coach. And I think it's probably a good spot for him to continue to move into the MLS ranks, not as a player anymore, but as a coach.
Kwame Awua, left back, UConn. He's currently trialing-ish with the Caps. He would be the third. Luke McNaughton was the second ever CPL transfer. Can you name the first CPL to MLS transfer with transfer fee?
Joel Waterman?
Did you guys... Did you highlight the blacked out portion, or did you just know that?
He's the only CPL to MLS player that I can think of. So, yeah.
All right. Well, quote from Anders, is this what we're really spending time on? I guess not anymore. That's it for us. We will see you on Extra Time Club and Country on Thursday, Sunday, and Wednesday, the Octagonal taking center stage in this region. And then it's CCL previews, the rest of the season previews into opening day on February 26th. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you later this week. Have a good one. So you made it through and even enjoyed more than an hour of MLS talk with Extra Time driven by Continental Tire. That means that you should go subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to them, and you should also check out more Extra Time on the MLS YouTube channel. If I can point right there, click right there, and subscribe to the MLS channel right here. Have a great day, folks.